Hi everyone. Before we get into the video, I'd like to make a quick disclaimer. Most of what I'm going to cover will probably only remain true for the first 2 or 3 months of Classic, but if Classic's popularity is greater than we expect, it could hold true much longer. This video will primarily cover how to make the most out of your gold and how to most efficiently get ahead of the pack. As such, I'll categorize this video into topics and have everything timestamped in the comments so you can jump ahead as necessary. Before we get into it, you should make sure you have your class chosen. There's plenty of class picking videos, I'll link a few in the comments or description if you still haven't figured out what you want to play. Just keep in mind that most classes are viable in Classic. There's been some giant stigma lately that only classes like Holy Paladin or Dwarf Priest are playable, which is completely incorrect. Every class brings some kind of usability to the field in Classic, as well as bringing their own unique powers and benefits. Obviously, just like in retail, there will be a best class, but you shouldn't base your judgment off of that, as everyone will be playing the quote-unquote best classes, making them far less desirable and much more difficult to gear. The first topic I'd like to discuss is leveling guides and leveling efficiency. If you're planning on leveling quickly, or being one of the first on your server to 60, you're more than likely to pull up Brian Kopp's Alliance leveling guide or Joanna's Horde leveling guide. Here's where you should stop. These guides are incredibly popular, making both producers millions in sales. You won't be the only one using them, and although it's known that these guides will provide a quick, if not the quickest methods to 60, imagine how much extra time it will take you to complete even the simplest collection quest when you have another 1,000 people competing with you for the same resources. Furthermore, these guides were both playtested on PvE servers, so if you plan on playing on a PvP server and you finally make it to Stranglethorn, your quest path will be greatly stunted by the armada of players that will now not only be competing with you, but also trying to end your life. My best advice to truly surpass these guides is to go to the roads least traveled. Take note of what races are most picked, and base decisions off of that as well. I'm not going to try and convince you to not play a human if it's your favorite race, but you should do your best to subvert your path to Loch Madan or Darkshore. And I'm not just saying you should just book it towards Darkshore if you're a human. That would be a huge, unnecessary time sink, especially if you're aiming to be one of the first 60s. And to add on to this, if you plan on the grinding spot, make sure you can actually grind it out. This isn't retail where a level 1 can handle a level 4 or 5 with no problem. Don't expect to be able to easily take on mobs 2 levels higher than you, especially if you're a warrior. You should draft out your own leveling path and test it. There's still at least 2 months until launch, so there's plenty of time to playtest anything and everything. Let's talk about gold making. This one will highly vary from server to server, as each one has their own specific demands, highballers, and economies. One thing I can tell you for sure is that you can make a nice sum of wealth in the first month farming for people's demands. You might be asking, how can I predict what everyone's going to want? This one's just as easy as predicting what zones are going to have the highest populations. Look up something such as cooking leveling guide, blacksmithing leveling guide, or any profession for that matter. Make a list of the most popular items and prepare a path in which you'll farm these. Remember, the first person to have professions maxed out will usually be the first one to collect the most amount of gold. If your intention isn't to be the first 60, subvert and try and be one of the first people with a maxed out profession. Gold can take you a very long way in vanilla, so if you can get yourself ahead here, you'll have a lot more control over what happens. This one will still require practice as you'll need to develop your own farming paths. If you have no interest in pushing to be the quickest with professions, or someone else is much more dominant in the market, you can also check out Frostadamus's guides, which I've linked in the description, where he covers plenty of areas that will make you gold not only from crafting materials, but also from the grey drops off the mobs he grinds. Keep in mind that if you aren't capitalizing off of what you create via your professions, you will fall behind in having gold for your mount. Learning recipes isn't free, and after running my own tests on this, it took me until level 48 to get my mount after maxing out blacksmithing. Furthermore, if you want the path of least resistance, take a look at items that will be cheap due to low demand, and use them to level crafting professions and alternative methods. The last point I'd like to add to this is remember that the market will be fresh. You may have gotten lucky and looted an incredible BOE like the Shadowfang, but no one's going to be able to afford the large cost right at the beginning. Hold on to it and keep it as a growing investment. Don't be greedy because you wanted gold quickly, when you could have actually maximized your gains. The final point I want to emphasize on gold making is how important and necessary inventory management is. This one's hard to get into, but build some habits as it's the best way to capitalize on everything that drops. Don't just keep crap in your inventory just because you think you might need it, and always sell when you're in town. A good way to monitor your bag space is to always keep your bags open. It might ruin your immersion at first, but once your habit is built, you'll thank yourself. Another important one is playtesting. I'd recommend trying out every single class and seeing if your idea of what a class is truly what you'll experience. There are plenty of Instant 60 servers out there that allow you to test every spec on every class. Don't forget, even if Paladin tanks can't legitimately tank raids, they provide some of the best AoE tanking. At the end of the day, Classic WoW is a game, and games are made to be enjoyed. People make mistakes and have different opinions, which aren't reasons you should bash or put them down for. We are all here to play and enjoy the same game. Lastly, I wanted to cover some changes you can expect, especially if you're a new player or coming from retail. I wouldn't necessarily say Classic is more difficult than retail, but there's much more RNG in play. You won't be able to take on multiple mobs without consequence or methods such as kiting. Always start off fighting 1 or 2 mobs at a time until you learn your limits. To add on to this, your resources are finite. Mana runs out quickly and your regen is quite low, so carrying food and drink is important. Hunters, you'll want to always stay stocked on arrows, as running out of them takes quite a bit of your strength away. Melee classes that can utilize bows, especially the warrior, will want to keep ammo on them at all times. Pulling mobs out of a pack will be the only way you can complete some quests. Furthermore, the majority of racials have changed over time, so don't expect your faction to function exactly the same as it does in retail. If you're a PvP player, the PvP trinket doesn't remove all disables, rather it has specific benefits per class. I won't stray on this one too much longer because I doubt many of you are new players, but this is an MMO. Unlike retail, you'll have to group up with people to complete things as simple as kill quests. Oh, also, don't let people convince you otherwise, but you can still play Classic as a casual. Alright, that's all I've got for this video. If you have any type of video you'd like to see from me coming up, feel free to notify me in the comments. There will be a giveaway coming soon, once beta is released, so keep an eye out for that. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.